The best thing I can tell you about your individual story is that nobody really cares all that much. If you're job searching right now, you're in the right place. Welcome to Land Your Next Job, the show that helps you move from ghosting and rejection to interviews and offers. I'm Erica Parker Price, a certified career coach with a background in tech who has spent nearly a decade helping professionals land roles at companies like Microsoft, Google, and mission-driven organizations. Each week, I share what's actually working in today's job market, from LinkedIn and networking to how AI is reshaping hiring. You'll get clear strategies and inspiration so you can run this marathon without burnout or guesswork. Follow the show and let's land your next job together. Hello and welcome back. Happy Monday. I'm Erica Parker Price and this is Land Your Next Job. Happy summer to you. I am recording this here in Seattle where we feel like we finally have summer weather and it came just in time for the World Cup. We had our first game here in Seattle today. This is June 15th when I'm recording this, and we have our first U.S. game later this week. So lots of excitement going on. And we are here to talk about the same thing we always do, which is how do you land your next job? Today, I want to talk about awkward conversations and maybe more than the awkward conversation, the anticipation of an awkward conversation. One of the common reasons that people hire me is to help them tell their story. Frequently, people are paralyzed about what they're going to be saying when they get on the phone with somebody or over an email or text exchange about what happened. Why are you looking? Why aren't you at your old job anymore? And people get paralyzed whether these are people they know or people they don't know. Now, if this isn't something that's impacting you, that's okay. Maybe you'll learn something for other people this week, but consider yourself lucky. The people that I'm talking to are the people that think there's a complicated reason as to why they were let go. And this happens much more frequently than I think you would all expect. I know because as a coach, I'm the one that people share these stories with. And the reason it's important is because it can hold you back from actually doing the job search. And in addition to that, it can make it very hard to show up well in networking conversations, in interviews, all kinds of different places. So first of all, if any of you out there are thinking, oh, my story is unique and different, I would venture to guess I have heard it before. I'm going to tell you several examples of what I'm thinking about here. And I will tell you that these examples get repeated to me over and over. None of them are one-off examples. So what am I talking about? The first one, let's just start basic. People that were laid off. Now, this has been happening more and more recently, but there are definitely people that are part of a large layoff that still carry a lot of shame with that layoff. Now, this one is not everyone. Many people can say, I was laid off. It was a company decision. It had nothing to do with me, and they move right on. But for the people that are really still struggling to understand why they were laid off, this is for you. Let's keep going. I've been laid off more than once in my career. I've been laid off twice, 3 times. It's clear that people are going to see that I'm doing something wrong. I was fired for performance reasons. Beyond that, I have people who have come to me saying, not only was I fired for performance reasons, but my company came out and said that all layoffs that happened this month were firings for performance reasons, so it's public knowledge. I was fired for a different reason that had nothing to do with performance. I quit. I simply couldn't take the job anymore. I was unable to conduct a job search while still working, even though I knew that that was the best thing for me. I simply couldn't do it. I was on medical leave. I was on personal leave. And for people that were on leaves of absence, those may sound like easy things to explain. No matter what the leave was about, I definitely have people that come to me and say, I don't think people are going to believe that that was a legitimate reason. So all kinds of discussions around how other people are going to perceive the leave of absence that you justifiably took. These are all very different stories, very unique and personal and individual. But the common element is that these are deep complicated stories that people are hesitant to get into. And quite frankly, I agree. You do not need to get into all of those details. What I do think is that you need to come up with a succinct answer to the question, which will, if at all, come to you from either a connection or a recruiter asking you why it is that you're looking right now. Or another way of phrasing that is, what are you doing right now? You absolutely need to have this question worked out before you engage meaningfully in the search. You need to have it before you start applying. You need to have it before you start networking, building connections. You definitely need it before you post on LinkedIn, and 100% before you are actually in an interview. The best thing I can tell you about your individual story is that nobody really cares all that much. And I'll say it again because this is one of the most shocking things that people hear from me, is that nobody really cares. Are people going to ask the question? Yes, they might. Good chance they don't. And this can be something that you have spent hours, days, weeks, and months obsessing over. How am I going to get by it? And what you will find is that if and when you do get the question, it is a 30-second conversation at most. So that's the first thing that I want to know, is that your reaction to this is far and away going to be the biggest reaction that anybody has. And that makes sense, right? This is deeply personal to you, and it makes sense that all the weight that you have been carrying with it is going to get translated into how you try and figure out how to explain it. The people that are going to be asking this question, in many cases, have already heard all kinds of similar answers from other people. So let's get to it. What should your answer be if somebody asks you this question about why you're no longer at your old company or some variant of that question? I'm going to give you 3 things to focus on here. First of all, this is a short answer. Ideally, it is a single sentence. Maybe it's 2 sentences, but it's not more than that. The second one is that it's truthful. I'm never going to advocate for lying in any part of the job search. And point number 3, you're simply not obligated to share every detail. You are asked a question, you give a simple, short, truthful answer, and then you move on. Now, some of you are probably wondering, what exactly is my answer going to be? And like I said, this is something that I literally do coach people on. If you are hung up on this question, I'm not expecting a single podcast is going to get you over that hump. But I want to put you moving in the right direction so you are not delaying your job search for this, or you're not shooting yourself in the foot when you are having these conversations with people because you're revealing more than you need to. So when I say that you don't have to reveal the whole truth, let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. In the case where you were fired for performance reasons, I want you to think about what is the single best thing that you can say. As an example, I know that many people that are fired for performance reasons, people that were put on PIPs, were also given severance. I think that severance is something that you can actually use to your advantage, because a company that is giving you a severance agreement to walk away is a company who has valued your contribution over the life of your employment there. I want to also normalize the number of people that are coming to me that are on a PIP, were fired after being on a PIP, left a company to avoid a PIP, PIP being performance improvement plan. This is much more common out there than it ever has been before. And when I say people come to me on this, these are high performers. These are people who have gotten high bonuses, who have been promoted, who have been at companies doing well, and suddenly they hit a wall. Now, we can go into, I'm sure, a much longer episode about how and why this is happening. But I want to say that I am talking about people who have been high performers, who have strong, solid resumes, and then suddenly something happens. And there's all kinds of reasons that it is happening out there, but it is usually very jarring to the person that it's happening to. The reason I think that mentioning that you got a severance is because I think that there's a way to phrase that and say, I'm no longer at XYZ company, I was offered severance, and I am looking for my next opportunity. It is truthful, and it doesn't get into the details, which are not going to help your case. Another way that you can answer this question, I think, is to go a little bit more vague. You can say something like, it was a year of layoffs and reorgs, and I got caught up in that, or I was impacted. What you're looking to do is answer the question, what's the single best thing I can say about what happened to me? Like I said at the beginning of this, if it was a straight layoff and they laid off thousands of people and you're one of them, that is not going to surprise anybody. I think you just say that you were part of that layoff. If it was more complicated, you just say one factual statement about how you were eliminated. I have people that have been eliminated in a year when there was a return to office mandate that they were no longer in compliance with. Was it their 100% reason for leaving the company? Maybe not, but it was factual to say I left in a year when return to office meant that my city was no longer going to be a long-term option. Simple, sweet, finished, move on to the next question. That is all you're trying to do, is close the loop on this. And once you have this single conversation, it really doesn't keep coming back up. Remember, the reason that companies are hiring somebody is because they have a problem and they're looking for the best person that can solve that problem. What we want is to show that you are the best person to solve that problem, and that whatever baggage you've been carrying around is completely and totally irrelevant. The final thing that I want to say here is that you are not defined by this event. Whatever it is that has happened was a single event in a long career, and I guarantee that you have huge accomplishments that are going to outweigh this single blip. And that's what I think it is. I think it's a blip. I think it's one that has a lot of impact right now, but I think it is absolutely something that you can get over. I have clients who have been fired for performance, who have gone on to go right back to that same company. And yes, that is literally possible. I have clients who have been part of a layoff, have had a long search, and then landed a 60% pay increase. So they're sitting there telling themselves the story that maybe that job category has been eliminated. Maybe they're never going to work again. Maybe the fact that this company doesn't need people like that anymore means that this career is over. And then boom, they go land another job, 60% pay increase. So the exit that you had, it is not your story. It does not define your story. What I want you to do is to write your own story. In this case, this particular part is one tiny sentence. So figure out what your sentence is. When somebody asks you, why is it that you're looking? Figure out what your simple answer is. There doesn't need to be any drama around it. You don't want them to come back with additional questions. You just want to say your answer and move on so that you can start to show people what it is you're capable of, what it is that you want to be doing, and how you want to contribute. Okay, that is all I have for you this week. Go out and have a great week. That's a wrap for this week on Land Your Next Job. If this episode helped, please leave a quick review and subscribe wherever you listen. Share it with a friend in transition, and I'll see you next Monday. Let's land your next job together.